Hello! We're on.
Hello.
LA's back! Yay!
Yeah.
Good to see you, man.
I think off to a great start. I think when you launched the stream, my connection went woo
Did it?
and
Yeah.
stopped for a moment.
Yeah, you froze.
Did I break it?
No, I think
Oh.
I think it broke on my part.
Oh, good. I thought I'd broken it because somehow
No.
the granddad of the group is in charge of pressing go.
It's a new house, a new internet connection, so I'm still
Ah.
testing. I don't have my microphone here yet, so I'm on the thingies. I feel like
we-
I've been moving houses as often as the moon or the sun
Yeah.
changes lately.
Well, we mustn't lose you. We're a bit thin on the ground again today. Those that were listening last week know that Mike and Shane are at a games thing, which sounds super nerdy. and Michael's still touring. So yeah, it's just us three today. Me and the Italians. Ciao.
Should we switch to Italian just for majority's sake?
Sure.
Yeah, exactly. let's do the whole stream in Italian, and Sam will make do.
Oh god, I will not make do. I cannot do that. Anyway, so today, action music. What's action music, guys? What does that mean?
Well,
Go.
I was thinking about this today, and actually I had a moment of profound crisis with myself because, like, how do you define? Like, I mean, if you think of the intro of How to Train Your Dragon, this is Berk. That whole sequence where there's like the first dragon attack on Berk. I mean, that's an action scene pretty much in an animation, but it's an action scene, and that's action music. And then if you think of like a Star Wars chase or a lightsaber battle, again, that's an action scene, but it's completely different music. And if you think of like traditional
Sicario, the armored vehicle.
Sicario, I was just gonna say, think of like police car chases and killers and whatnot. I mean, it's such a huge and varied genres that it is just like very difficult to put a hat on all of it and just give a single definition, I think.
I think it's got a lot of if you have a Venn diagram of these things, it has a lot of overlap with thriller, and other things, specifically thriller actually, because that's what I always find myself doing is when I think of action music, what I'm actually doing is thinking of the most exciting parts of a thriller. And actually, I think what we mean when we say action music, 3 exclamation marks, is it's something that is building up the hype, the tension, and the anticipation of perhaps a big event, and it might include that event. But for me, that's kind of what I think of. Is it can often be repetitive. Not necessarily a good thing, but sometimes it's a necessity. Lots of ostinati going on, lots of that kind of stuff. But the crux of it is it's pulling you into the action of a scene. That's the thing that I listen for anyway. But excuse me, I've still got a cough, guys. Sorry. But like you said, it can be done in so many different ways. You mentioned Sicario, Ali, which is there's so many examples in that of really just unsettling music. A lot of the time, it's not even like balls to the wall action. It's just, oh, I don't like this. This is making me uncomfortable. But it's a really action heavy film. So I think that's a really clever way to score action. And then you mentioned this is Berk V. I'd probably argue that's a montage scene with action in it. It's a tricky one because it's very action heavy, but it's what it's doing is introducing all the themes. So that's a more thematic approach to scoring action.
Yeah.
It's predominantly, I guess what would you call the theme? It's it's just the How to Train Your Dragon theme, I guess, or rather than specific characters for the majority of the actual action, and then it's kind of drops into each character as it introduces them. It's a genius,
and yet
we talk about it a lot.
Exactly, and yet it manages to be super exciting and to keep like the attention and the emotion up the whole time. Even if there's like this very, very sort of like, what's the word that I'm looking for? Can't remember. Anyway, it's a very interesting montage. So yeah.
So what? I'm avoiding talking about Dune because we're saving.
Avoid it.
I'm avoiding it, but avoiding talking about it, Ali. Let's not start this. But what examples of good action music have you guys heard of late? Anything that
I think action music is such a broad term for. I mean, you can find action cues in Downton Abbey.
Yeah. All right. Well, different question then. Is there an action film that came out recently that you've seen? I can only think of Marvel ones, frankly, but action film that you think was scored really well. I think it's often a very difficult question to answer with action.
It is a difficult question
because
yes.
I find that a score in an action film has to be really good to grab my attention, to make me think, wow, that was scored well, rather than wow, that was action.
I have to say something. I started watching Tenet here at home because I never got around to it. But I was watching it and it pissed me off, so I turned it off after 10 minutes maybe.
I knew you were gonna say this. I know you well enough, and I was sure.
But the music, I mean, the music for the opening scene, I love it. It's really great music. It's interesting. It has all the. It sounds like the like kind of a Hans Zimmer style of action music, but 3.0 or 4.0, done in a very, very interesting way. The instrumentation is interesting. The polyrhythmic, it's really well done. I turned off the movie because Michael Caine appeared, and I love Michael Caine. But I don't like when he pops up in every Nolan movie ever, and apart from Dunkirk. But it's not credible anymore, in my opinion. In those. I mean, same direction, same photography, same kind of setting, lighting. It's all that kind of style, and Michael Caine. So he seems Alfred from Batman Begins.
He's like Stan Lee in the Marvel film.
Exactly,
up to Phase 4. He needs to do a cameo in every film by Christopher Nolan.
Yeah, but that opening cue. That opening cue at the beginning of Tenet, in my opinion, is one of the best that I've heard in the past few years.
I think there's a lot of that you may have missed, but there's a lot of good action scoring in that film because of the techniques. Some of the techniques you already mentioned. Like I think Ludwig Göransson was really smart about how he did it. And I think that sort of brings me on to what I wanted to ask you guys next is, do you think it's kind of rare to be able to score good action music? And when I say that, I say for one to be able to do it. I think what I'm getting at is a lot of action films tend to have a lot of higher ups in the filmmaking process that seem to dumb down things a little bit, and it really takes a special filmmaking team to allow breathing space for the composer. I mean, would you guys agree with that?
Yeah, I do. I think it's basically I once watched a very interesting YouTube movie with a bunch of action cues and scenes from different films. And basically, the people that were working on these films shared also the temp music that was used in those specific scenes, and it was all. There were pretty big movies like Transformers. There was another with Nicolas Cage. I can't remember which one. And the temp was all Hans Zimmer. It was every single scene that they showed. It was Hans, and basically the music in the movie that ended up in the actual movie. In the end, it was kind of a rip-off of the temp, which is usually done because, of course, there's not enough time and so many people to answer to that you want probably the least amount of problems. So you try to do something as close as possible to the temp, so that they don't have, the cues don't get rejected. But yeah, it kind of it becomes boring. Instead of drawing you in, you're kind of listening to something that you've listened a million times before. So going back to Tenet, I mean, it was really interesting to listen to something that was, yes, similar to something that we heard in the past, but it was done very elegantly, in my opinion. So
yeah, I think I mean, what you're saying, sorry, what you're saying does apply to other styles of film, styles of music as well. But I think action music's so guilty of it because of its function, because its function is actually so straightforward. It's to give you a pulse, to raise your heartbeat until the next hit point in the film. That's its sole purpose. And Hans Zimmer historically has been extremely good at that. And so that's why he's constantly temped. I've just seen Jolene's mentioned about Stargate. I agree completely, Jolene. And actually, I was going to bring this up when we talk about Dune as well, because there are some similarities. Obviously, with nearly 30 years difference, or 25 years. But yeah, that one is David Arnold, right? It's his first score.
So we're talking about Stargate, the movie.
I assume so. Yeah. Yeah, I assume so. I that's how I've read into it. Stargate the movie, yeah. Which I don't know the series music at all, but I know the David Arnold score very well, and that was his first big score, and it's one of the best debut scores I've ever heard. It's incredible, but he also has a lot of space there to not be action, and it's a very kind of heroic score, and I think that was in a period in the 90s where I think really what we're talking about, the kind of Hans Zimmer temp copy paste stuff, has happened since the mid noughties. I think that's where it's been really tough to break through it as a composer. I'd imagine. I've never scored a big action film. Excuse me, my cough's going because I'm talking. But yeah, guys, it's a tough nut to crack, I think. But I think we've had some really good submissions. Should we listen to something?
Let's.
Guys, how about Lara's first? Quick intro into Lara's. She's been doing a lot of granular synthesis stuff, which is super cool, and I know that this is a product of some of that. Yeah, let's have a listen. I'm going to try muting us, and hopefully that'll work. But yeah, have a listen to that link yourselves, and meet you back in a couple of minutes. Cool, guys. What do you think?
Yeah, I love it.
That's
We
awesome,
were
right?
just talking about
That's awesome.
Tenet, right?
I was going to say there's definitely a bit of that going on, isn't there?
Yeah.
Jolene's mentioned Tron vibes, which is
Mhm.
again, it's got that kind
Yeah.
of. Yeah, what do
That's
you
true.
think? So my first thought on it is totally see it in an action film. It's not like super in your face, but like it's more the kind of build up, isn't it? It feels like the precursor to the hard hitting stuff, but it's certainly applicable to what we're talking about. I really love the kind of evolving sounds of this. I wish you were here tonight, Laura, to tell us about how you made it. Unfortunately, she's not here today. But there's a lot of really interesting changes in each sound that drag you through it, and I think that's the thing that holds my attention. What do you guys think of that?
Can I say that like one of the things that struck me most is like the size of it. It sounds so big, so impressive. Like I know that when they do these sort of things for like big film scores, sometimes they program the synthesizers, then they play the synthesizers into the room, like at Air or at Abbey Road, and then they record the sound of those synthesizers, bass, arpeggiators, and stuff in that room. So it sounds huge and big because you're having huge speakers playing into Air Studios. And I mean, it would be interesting. I would probably want to compare this cue by Lara with something recorded with these sort of techniques of like something big scale, because it did really sound huge to me. Very deep, very rich in terms of frequencies. The spectrum was really vibrant. The mix was excellent. The ambience was very nice. I'd be very. It's such a shame that Lara can't be here tonight, because it'd be very interesting to hear how she achieved this really amazing feeling of like being completely swallowed by the synth sounds.
Sounds really good. Especially the discrepancy between the very dry drums at the beginning and as you said, in terms of the very big lush synth swells. It's pretty cool. I heard as well about the I think it was for Blade Runner that they recorded synths that way. I don't really see the point of that, but I don't know. You can basically you can achieve more or less the same result. Probably not spending 30,000 quid on Air Studio, but
yeah, it doesn't surprise me at all that they did that for Blade Runner. I think
I think it was for Blade Runner. I'm not 100% sure.
I think it was of quite a specific technique maybe for that, but it's probably been used since because I think that had a specific kind of atmosphere that they were going for, which is kind of a lot more merging going on between the sounds. But yeah, for sure. What I'd be interested to know is what's next from this one. Like I say, it feels it's so perfect for the beginning of a heist, or like the
guys prepping for the battle or something.
or the computer nerd just figuring out how to do the thing that they're about to do. But I'd love to know what you would do when that hit point comes and the shit hits the fan, and how you would score that with the same techniques, and whether you would choose to go more hybrid, or whether you would stick full synth and make it just massive. And I'd just love to hear more about that. But nice job, guys. I'm struggling to talk because when I talk I cough, and I'm so sorry. You're gonna have to talk more.
We'll take a bit of the stress off you. I mean, we're Italians. We're programmed to talk, so
yes.
don't worry. Okay. who can do that. Kudos to Lara. I remember when she was like writing her dissertation in granular synthesis, she reached out to me a few months ago asking if I was willing to help a bit, if I knew anything about granular synthesizers. I had to, and I have to confess, I am very, very much ignorant. As in, I've worked a bit with granular synthesis when I was back in college. I did a project for my electroacoustic music course, which was made very much by, okay, this is a granular patch, cool, let's use it. But there wasn't any more deepness and thoroughness than that. So I really wish I knew more, because I know it's a very interesting technique. And congratulations to Lara for using it in such a very such an inspiring way and beautifully sounding cube.
How about you, Ali? Have you done any before, granular synthesis stuff?
Yeah, I mean, Lara contacted me as well, and she sent me a list of questions. And I was very happy to be able to help. I must say I'm not like a world expert, but I really enjoy this kind of stuff. And the scores that I find more interesting lately are coincidentally mostly done with granular synth. I'm thinking of Annihilation, thinking of Debs. I don't know if you guys have heard about Debs.
Yeah, it's great. It's a TV show. It's the same guy, so it's the same director.
Same guy, yes.
Is it Ben Salisbury?
Yes.
How's it spelled?
Sorry?
How is it spelled, the show?
Devs, like developers.
Devs.
And it's the same director as Annihilation?
Same director.
Ex Machina.
Yes, Ex Machina. Let me just check.
I didn't know that the guy who did Annihilation was also the guy who did Ex Machina.
Yeah. And it's the same guy who wrote. It's the same guy who wrote The Beach and 28 Days Later.
Yes, Alex Garland. His name is.
Yeah.
Yeah, he started off as a writer in kind of surreal stuff, and
it was really interesting. It was really interesting to see Nick Offerman in a like serious role. And I was saying I love that kind of music. It's it's so interesting to dissect certain kind of sounds and basically create something totally different from the source that you would never imagine. And you set off not even knowing what you actually want from a sound, and you end up having this this pretty cool sound. I loved on Lara's track. I loved that swell that comes at one point, like wow, in the low end. I would be interested to know how she did that.
Sorry guys, if every once in a while you see me like going down the corner, but my
you're just snorting coke.
Yeah, exactly. I have a long line of coke here on the table. Just like I'm trying to keep an eye on the chat on YouTube, and my sight is short, so I need to get closer to my secondary screen. Cool.
Yeah.
Cool guys. Well, it's exciting stuff, and I'm keen to see more granular synthesis stuff in action, because it's clearly very successful at what it does. Should we do Jolene's next?
Yes, let's.
Soaring Dragon. Guys, could you mute yourselves on Zoom, because I can't actually mute you, otherwise we'll hear anything.
Give me just a second.
Have you found it?
Not quite. I agree. Blah blah blah. Okay, there it is.
You got it? Okay, mute yourselves, please. Here we go.
Love it.
Nice one. You done, V?
Nice. Yeah,
Good
absolutely.
job, Jolene. Nice one. Guys, what do you think?
Amazing.
I have just one suggestion, Jolene. At the beginning when there's the perks, after the choir, the drums come in, and there's this kind of crescendo. Rhythmic. This kind of accelerando. I would suggest you. I don't know if you played the drums on your MIDI keyboard, or if you drew them in with a mouse and playing with the velocity. I would think you drew them in, because they seem everything in the drum seems too synced on the beat.
Too tight.
It's too quantized. So I suggest either you play the drums yourself on your MIDI keyboard, so they sound more natural in terms both rhythmically and velocity wise, or you don't quantize like 100%, maybe you quantize 70%, so they're still on grid, but it's a bit more flammy. That's my only suggestion.
I was thinking the same thing, Ale, and the thing is, if you want the feeling of a big percussive ensemble, having that slight imperfection and lack of tightness is also what gives the feeling of something bigger, because take 20 players, they will surely be minimally slightly out of sync in the attack of the note, which is part of being human and being a player. So I noticed the same thing. Many libraries have the tightness function embedded in like the controls. For example, I think most of the Spitfire libraries nowadays have these like, I'm not sure if it's called tightness or whatever, but basically
they have it for strings. They have it for strings, but I mean, if you're playing like a single drum, there's not gonna be a tightness. I mean, you're gonna press the key and the drum's gonna sound.
Definitely experimenting with recording different sort of percussions yourself, even to overlayering stuff. So like if you keep the sample that you have, but then you record yourself playing even like things that you can find at home and sound decent, sound nice, sound percussive. With a good microphone, you can record it, manipulate the sound a little bit, and just add it with a bit of panning, a bit of reverb, so that it adds to this. Because I think what you were saying, Ale, is a very good point. I wanted to tie in with this also and say, I was thinking while I was listening to Jolene's cue that percussions are probably one of the most go-to solutions for action music, if you think of it. There's since Hans obviously ticking things, but in general, big drums, taiko drums, bongos, every sort of snare drums, every bit less maybe with snare drums because they're probably they have more of a military feeling. But in general, percussive things are probably such a big part of what makes a cue action style in our collective imaginary, which is interesting. Probably because it's such a sudden attack and then decay that it has this like urgency in itself. It's just like it's quick, and you can have sort of a rifle machine gun style quantity of them, and it keeps the feeling high. I really appreciated also how Jolene, I was reading the YouTube description a little bit, how there's like these two tribes conflicting with each other, and the sort of folk connotation that you managed to keep in it, and like the instrumentation that you chose besides the percussion, I thought was brilliant. Very, very tasteful, very minimal, but at the same time very effective, which is not easy to be effective and to be able to, most people probably, if you say, oh, do an action cue, go, you would think of something huge, big, let's add a million things. This was very simple in itself, but very effective and kept the emotion very high, and so yeah, very good job. Also with the mix,
Yeah, I agree,
And
Jolene. Sorry, go on.
last thing, sorry, finding. I don't know if this was all recorded or if you had libraries, but it was sounding very good, and it's not easy to find folk ethnic instruments sampled well and it works so well and organically, in my opinion. So really good job.
Yeah, nice one, Julian. I agree with everything that's been said. My main suggestions are more general, to do with kind of modernizing it. I think your instincts are really great for scoring scoring a scene, or scoring a narrative, and really interesting things are happening. I think it's a case of beefing up and giving it more size. I think Ale was kind of alluding to that, particularly with drums. It's one of the these days it's really important to make them pretty big. I mean, I think you can be unsensitive with it, but there's all sorts of plugins. I mean, you're saying using Tom Holkenberg, which I'm sure are massive. But you can choose to add like plugins on top of that. The Sound Toys have some great ones with like Devil Lock and Decapitator and stuff like that that make drums sound amazing. I would suggest, as well as what the guys were suggesting with creating a more natural kind of flam, is just somehow increase the layers as well. Have a bit more spread of like some closer, some further. And so some libraries naturally do that. So Damage is a great one for that, because you can place them in a room and you get a natural panning as well. I think they're particularly good for action. Perhaps less so for this, because there's a more specific Far Eastern flavour to it. But just in terms of making everything sound bigger, I also think locking in to the hooks within your track is going to be really good. So you've got some awesome vocals there, which I think do some really nice things, but I wasn't sucked into them as much as I could be. I don't know whether you guys thought they were a tad dry, and maybe a bit more of a dreamy verb on them could have helped that. I don't know if that was.
I don't know if she was going for like a realistic take, because she has some hard pan, like 100% left or 100% right. So probably that was an artistic choice, I suppose.
No, it's all good. I just mean more in terms of the space that it's in. I think the panning was nice.
I think what I mean is, I agree with you in terms of some of the drums seemed like they were playing in a type of room, and some others were playing in another type of room. Like some were playing together, but one had more reverb than other, and so that was a little bit distracting, maybe.
Yeah, that was definitely. Sam, sorry, go on, Vic.
Julian is asking, what's the plugin you mentioned to beef it up? Sorry,
so
I think it was Damage.
Damage is a library for basically trailerized drums. Damage 2, I should say. They have other things called Damage, but Damage 2 is just if you're writing action drums, you can't beat it. The plugins are from Sound Toys, sorry, which you guys I'm sure know as well. They have tons of amazing plugins, but the specific ones I use on drums are the Decapitator. And if I want them to sound horrendous, I use Devil Lock as well.
I never tried that one. I know the Decapitator, but I never tried this one. Sam. What does it do exactly?
Great. It basically just destroys the sound. It can't. I don't know. I'm rubbish with this stuff. I don't know quite what
sort
it
of Beat Crusher.
It's that kind of thing, but in a.
I think it's an overdrive.
Yeah, it's essentially an overdrive. Yeah. And you crush it and you crunch it, basically. They're the two controls. It's very easy to use, but it's very handy to just scrape it up a bit. But the Decapitator, I think, is particularly good for drums. Just like a really unnecessarily big compression, if it suits it. I don't know necessarily if that's what this wants, but something a bit more subtle than that maybe, because there's a slightly nicer character to it.
Devil Lock is a crushing, pounding, aggressive compressor for massive drums.
There you go.
Compressor.
I use it on other things as well, but yeah, Sound Toys make them, and you can buy the whole bundle. Yeah, they have regular discounts, so it's worth keeping an eye out.
$499.
$499. I've bought it for a third of that. The whole set. But yeah,
I'm sure they're gonna be, usually for Black Friday they always sell the full bundle for around $100 or something,
which is so worth it because they have a ton of other things like their panning and pitch shift and tremolator, all that stuff. Super useful. Sorry, perhaps I was being more generic about action drums and less so for this track, Jolene. So don't take it as read what I'm saying, but certainly just to lift it, I think adding as much space as you're able to your as much kind of, I don't know, bring us into the room a little bit more. But I think there's some really lovely stuff there. As I say, your instincts are great, and yeah, nice job. Black Friday is definitely the time to buy things, isn't it? Yeah, guys, shall we move on to the next one?
Let's. We have an in-house guest, I think, if I am not mistaken.
In-house guest?
Yes, Shane.
Oh, sorry, yes, of course. We got Shane's.
I
was somewhere else.
Not a guest connecting last minute, unfortunately, but I guess in the share and tell part of the episode.
Indeed.
So Shane, our beloved Shaney, sent us some of his music to listen to. And yeah, I'm very curious to see, as I'm a huge fan of Rutherford Jones Productions, so I'm very curious to see.
Cool, guys.
Very curious to see what he sent. Shall we?
Here we go. Don't forget to mute. Here we go. Nice. Oh. He's not done. He's not done.
He's listening to the whole album.
You're muted, V.
Sorry, I was I was just listening. I was listening to the last section, pretty much.
Yeah, I mean, wow, guys, our guy can write.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
pretty cool.
His time orchestrating big time blockbusters paid off, I think, because you can really tell the how idiomatic this is. This is the word that I was looking for. It's really idiomatic. There's plenty of sweet chops, orchestration techniques, sounds, solutions from a compositional and orchestrational point of view, blend of synthesizer and orchestra, that it's really what the whole Hollywood aesthetics of the last 10, 15 years is all about. So I think, I mean, I'm obviously in such an oversaturated industry and time in history when we tend to redo ourselves over and over again with productions. It's nice to be original and fresh and to try different approaches. But if you, I think, want to write for Hollywood or for like these sort of action, very beautiful action scenes and these sort of things, you'll only find in big productions. And I think writing with this particular aesthetic and idiomacy, I don't know, idiomacy. Well, it's really idiomatic. You gotta learn how to write like that. There's no idiomacy. Idiocy as well. Idiocy as well. You gotta be an idiot. No, but it's amazing. The only thing, sorry, I had to re-listen to it because so there's three at least I'm looking at the waveform because we have a Dropbox link here. The first two sort of chapters are amazing. The only thing that I noticed and I'm curious about is like there's a sort of half tempo vibe in the last section, which I was kind of expecting in the middle. And I'm very, very curious to see, like, maybe next week we should ask him if he wrote this to picture or to a brief or what, because the composition overall works really well, in my opinion. But I'm curious as to why in the last section he decided to go this sort of half tempo percussion. Because I think that depends on the scene, obviously. But if you're writing an action scene which needs to really climax at some point, I would expect the opposite, to go almost double tempo. So I'd be very curious to ask Shane what was the thought process behind that. So yeah, it'd be the only thing I was curious about.
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I've worked with Shane. Or alongside Shane on a number of like trailer tracks and stuff, but I'm not certain that this is that. I think he's written this as a piece, but I might be wrong. I should have said as well, the title's called Ghosts and Ghouls. What do you guys does that affect how you think of the track? I mean, does that what
I can hear some I could hear some ghosts and ghouls at about 1 minute when there's the drop down section, like the more quiet. There's something like going from left to right, and it's an amazing piece, and it's really really well written. But we know that Shane's great. The only thing that I was, I don't know, unsure about was at the beginning. There's two kind of strings. Can you hear this, guys?
No.
No. Okay, great. So I can listen to it while I speak. Basically, there's the really fast chops in the string, ticketing, and then there's some in the seconds. I don't know, in other strings, and that as well as in Jolene's piece, it seems like there are in two very different rooms. Like it sounds like you have the first violins in your face, and the seconds. Let's call them.
So you think that's
in a
that's
huge space far away from you?
Is
Sorry?
that a shorts versus longs thing? Because is there Durham? Is that like a legato patch?
Yeah, it's kind of a trill.
Yeah,
very
maybe
fast
that's
trill.
it. Maybe it's that. It's just that the shorts need a little bit more help to. It might. I don't know, Shane. Maybe you can enlighten us next week. But if you have the same, sorry guys, if you have the same reverb on both, then it'll be very obvious that the shorts, even if it's in the same room, really the shorts. Well, I don't know. Do they probably need? No, they don't need more. They shouldn't need more. But I think maybe he's just overcompensated. Maybe he's just overcompensated.
I think it's just a volume thing.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
that was my only objection.
Yeah, objection.
Let's take a bash. Yeah, exactly. Let's take a bash at Shane's word. It's a shit.
Yeah.
Oh, how dare he,
guys?
say...
We've got to be critical to our own. Let's do it.
Yeah,
Shane, yeah, man, it's awesome writing. I think it's just really compelling. It's busy in a good way. It's what it needs to be. Your brass writing in particular, I think, is phenomenal in this, because you don't often these days hear kind of florid brass writing. You hear a lot of Brahms, and as in double AMS, not AHMS. And I think it's really successful. If I had two gripes, which aren't gripes, the first thing I would say is you use the same riser twice.
I wanted to say that, but I didn't want to be too picky.
I'm being picky, guys. Come on.
Because I didn't want to be, a shitty friend.
I thought there was something. What is it? The riser that you have at like about 35 seconds.
I guess there's quite a high riser, and then it happens going into that final act as well.
Yeah.
And for me,
35, and then 1/8.
I wasn't sure because I don't know, but I had a feeling.
Yeah, I mean it's such a small thing, but I actually thought hearing the first one, to feel more body in that riser, I'd like to pitch it down because it felt quite high and in your face. And then I heard it the second time. I was like, okay, it's kind of okay there. So maybe it's just as simple as a pitch shift of one of them. I also thought you could make use of the kind of ghost scream thing as one of those risers, just as part of if that's not too on the nose. Excuse me. My other tiny point that I had is, as awesome as your brass writing is, it'd be nice to find some moments where they work more as one from top to bottom, because they are often really satisfying moments if they, because there's a lot of dancing around, particularly trumpets, horns. But if you have, I'm thinking particularly at the end of kind of Act 2, around a minute. Like if they arrive at a point where they really land and the chord is big and full, that could be really satisfying. It felt like the higher brass got their moment a little bit more. I mean, this is so picky, guys. I'm sort of even regretting saying anything.
Oh, that's right.
That's
Do you know
fine.
what I mean, though? Do you know what I mean? Like, as much as we complain about Brahms in brass and it being too low-end farty brass, actually giving a full section their moment where they really come together to take you to that hit point. Those moments can be really satisfying. So that was a small thing, really.
There's two very interesting questions from Jeline that I think pick on a bunch of things we've been saying tonight and ask for further information. First question is classical composer library question. She's asking about our favorite libraries for risers and atmospheric sounds. And I'm gonna quickly say Rise and Hit by Native Instruments, I think it's Native Instruments. It's my go-to because it's really good. Basically, you have the razor, you have the hit, and you have the tail, and you can sort of mix and match, customize, control independently. It's a very nice library.
How's it called?
Rise and Hit by Native Instruments, I think.
I've
Or
heard of that as well. Yeah.
I can't remember which one it is. But anyway, it's really good.
Cinematic.
There you go.
It's the cinematic thing.
I wasn't too sure. And atmospheric sounds, I am a huge fan of the textures, playable and soundscapes in the Omnisphere library. They're really sweet.
I mean, Omnisphere is the go-to for a lot of people. I mean, and rightly so, because it's incredible. I don't have it actually, and I've resisted it. Partly because I felt like I could accomplish similar with the stuff that I'd sensibly or not sensibly bought already. One thing I would suggest, Jolene, sorry, is explore Spitfire Labs. It was the thing I needed to say today, because I did it recently, and as in Spitfire Labs, the free collection of libraries. Some are better than others, but actually they have tons on there, and a lot of it's really great, certainly for atmospheric sounds, if that's what you're after. Just on the subject of risers, less so for this style of music, but I've certainly got into the habit a lot more of reversing stuff. So certainly with like, I've done a lot. I just did an album of sort of piano and strings stuff, and just playing in the piano chord you're about to arrive at, bouncing in place and reversing it, immediately you've got a good riser, and you just line it up with your hit point. They're perhaps more subtle risers, but that's just a really good habit actually of using reverse sounds. I don't know if you guys agree with that.
Yeah,
I've been doing it a lot recently.
That's very cool. There's also some in the Spitfire Albion collection. In some of them, can't remember which one, but there are some cool Evolution EVO patches, and like sort of they take orchestral textures and they turn those into soundscapes, into ambient sounds, which you can manipulate further if you want to go even further from the typical orchestral vibe, and they sound very good. There was a second question as well, guys. She's asking, any tips on creating space in the music? She's trying to bussing out different reverbs for each section, I suppose, of the orchestra, but I'm not too sure. Interestingly enough, that's
one of the objection I had about your piece. If I understand correctly, your question, I could hear that some of the drums had a kind of reverb and lived in a kind of space, and some of the other drums lived in another. So, and that was quite distracting for me. So I wouldn't.
Sorry,
do that.
Ale, can I just,
Yes.
Can you specify, Jolene, when you say different reverbs, do you actually mean different reverb plugins, or do you just mean different buses with the same reverb on? I think you mean different reverbs. And if that's the case, that's a problem, I think, because certainly if you're going for realism, because
well, yeah, of course,
what you're doing is putting them in different rooms.
Yeah, if you're going for crazy soundscapey, sound designy stuff, you can do basically whatever you want. If you want some kind of realism, I wouldn't do that.
Yeah. I was gonna say I initially that I was doing as Julian. I had same reverb, different settings for each section of the orchestra, and then I had an sort of a tutti reverb, like a room reverb that I would. So I had my woodwind bass, strings, brass, percussion, bass. Each of them had a slightly different reverb setting, and then there was a different actually kind of reverb that I used to tie everything together. It was like super complex. And when I was doing this, I thought, oh, it actually sounds really cool, and it's very natural. It doesn't. Having like one really good reverb plugin, and there's plenty of them out there. Having
Valhalla,
one
I
really good
recommend.
plugin, Valhalla, what's it called? Altiverb is another one. Cinematic Rooms is really good, apparently. I mean, you choose yours.
There's a range.
But
There's a range.
Yeah, exactly. If you choose one and you stick with that, and you just have different amount of send to the reverb bus, it's definitely the most natural thing. You just gotta work out a little bit which one is the one which is closer to your taste and to the sound that you have in your ears, and work out the correct settings. But it's definitely better than having.
I would say be sensitive to the inbuilt reverb of your samples, and I actually used to have this basically almost entirely Spitfire stuff with the tree mic on full and another reverb, and I've since stopped that. I don't even use their reverb now in the samples. I just put close mics on so I have control. But I think a good habit is to, when you're bussing, to bus as you would want to mix. So assume that you're going to mix down your buses as wet stems, and then each of those buses, so you're going to have like wind longs, wind shorts, winged effects or whatever, and then have the same reverb on them. If you're using orchestral samples, have the same reverb going through each one. You just have the individual control to change the levels. And then what I would say is, if you then want to add more of a effect reverb or something like that, you can add like a plate reverb, something that makes it glossier and less orchestra in a room reverb. That's totally doable, but I would think of that additionally rather than or as a replacement to that. But have your kind of template set up in a way that, you know, is consistent and makes sense. I think having different different reverbs going on, that's doing, if you think about it, exactly what you think it's doing. It's putting everything in a different room, and that's not human. That's not musical, and you want it to be as musical as possible.
Speaking of Valhalla, they're super cheap.
And 50 quid. 50 quid.
Yeah. $50.
The best value. The Valhalla Room is the best value reverb that I could find, and it's so good. I spent 600 quid or something on Vienna Mir, and it was a waste of time. Valhalla cost me 50. And money, yeah. Altiverb is about 500 quid, I think, and is like as good as it gets in with sort of plugins, third-party plugins. But you know, short of.
But it's very pricey.
Hardware.
Altiverb is really cool, but it's very pricey. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you're starting up, like, Valhalla is just the business, the business.
The business. Cool, guys. I think we can end it here for tonight.
We better have, hadn't we? Guys, thank you so much.
So as Sam was saying in the beginning, we deliberately held back with June talks, because that's going to be next week, isn't it?
Yeah. I have to watch it now.
So assignment for next week, go watch June, because next week is all going to be about June, the soundtrack, well, the film, the soundtrack, the whole world of it. There's so much to talk about, and take it as you may, like it or hate it. It was one of the events of this year, cinematic events, considering that like nothing has happened pretty much until a month ago. So it's definitely a hot topic, and we all look forward. Next week we should be the whole gang, I think. The first time in this season, hopefully. So it should be an interesting talk, right?
Absolutely, I can't wait. Go and listen to the Hans Zimmer June sketchbook on Spotify.
Yeah, because it takes you like 5 minutes. It's really quick.
Yeah. Hashtag not really.
Cool, guys.
Cool.
Till next
See
week.
you all next week, guys. Thanks for joining in. See you next Wednesday.
Ciao, ciao. Bye.
Bye.